Need for Speed is a storied franchise that peaked in the mid-2000s, with classics like Most Wanted and Underground 2. Need for Speed Heat is an ambitious attempt to recapture the glory days by combining settings from both sides of the racing spectrum. Legal events from Pro Street and illegal street racing from Most Wanted and Carbon. Heat uses the time of day to maintain a clear separation between legal and illegal races. Legal events take place in broad daylight, which makes sense. There's nothing to hide. It's all above board. Illegal street races are held under the cover of darkness, though this doesn't seem to hinder cops from chasing you. Pursuits are sometimes initiated immediately after you start the race, though it is more common for a cop to chance upon your route which triggers the chase. It's easier to escape if you can outrun the cops. Trying evasive maneuvers like doubling back has only resulted in failure in my experience. It feels like cops do significantly more damage to you than you can do to them. Even if you ram your car into them, it feels like you take more damage from the collision, though you can mitigate this by purchasing upgrades for your car that make it do more damage or take less damage. Either way, you'll have to rely on the damage meter on the bottom right, since the damage modelling in the game is conservative to say the least. I haven't yet encountered any engine fires or major deformation from a collision, though the game does feature some level of destructibility. You can plough through most of the trees, lampposts and barriers that get in your way. Need for Speed Heat is an arcade racer, meaning it discards any semblance of realism in its driving physics. You don't need to hit the brakes or even slow down to navigate corners. Just turn and tap the handbrake, and your car will reorientate itself without losing any momentum. You don't even need to take your foot off the gas. I thought sliding around corners would throw off the cops, but they can keep up just fine. In fact, driving in anything but a straight line is the quickest way to get busted. Cops have a couple of ways to take you down. They can wreck your car by ramming into it over and over, or they can slow you down and box you in. You only have a couple of seconds to break free, and if you don't, you're busted, meaning you lose a good chunk of your money. While the risk does add some level of excitement, getting out of a chase just feels like a chore once you've triggered the pursuit. The cops are little more than a nuisance, but I don't hold that against the game as I don't see what the developers could have done differently. Well, maybe the way the cops are indicated on the minimap could have been better. The triangular icon makes it impossible to tell what direction they're facing, which can be the difference between flying under the radar or getting busted after a long, tedious chase. Because of this lack of clarity, I often slow my car to a crawl when I spot a cop on the minimap. I just don't want to deal with the hassle of a chase. This is just one of the several mechanics that differentiate night from day. Switching from day to night is easy. All it takes is pressing a button. But it doesn't work the other way around. You have to drive to a safe house to end the night and save the currencies you earn, though you will have to be careful not to run into any cops on the way. Once you get to a safe house, you can fast travel to your garage or other safe houses. This mechanic is unavailable at night. While I appreciate the duality, I'm not a fan of the way you're forced to progress through day and night events, grind currencies. You earn bank during the day and rep during the night, though you can also complete daily challenges for extra currency of the other type. Bank is the game's stand-in for money, though this isn't sufficient to buy cars and parts on its own. The currency rewards seem unbalanced. Some races reward way more rep or bank than others. This is why I think the progression system in this game is bloated. You have to grind rep from illegal night races to increase your rep level to unlock the ability to then pay for new cars and parts with bank. How does this make sense? Why do you have to reach a certain rep level to purchase better cars? Why do dealerships want nothing to do with your bank until you reach the requisite rep level? Cars don't need to be locked behind levels since campaign missions are already locked behind rep levels, which should be motivation enough to grind rep levels through night races. For a racing game, the story isn't half bad. You play as a newcomer who tries to dodge the corrupt authoritarian police while attempting to make a name for yourself. You'll meet a motley cast of characters along the way. These serve as a source of side quests. If you care about diversity and representation, there's plenty of that here. Since this can be a polarizing subject depending on your political views, it wasn't a factor in my assessment of the game. Either way, it is of little consequence given the game's larger issues. The audio design is a mixed bag. Most of the tracks are forgettable, though some of the music in the customization menus can be pleasant to listen to. The The sound design is more consistent. The engines rumble and brakes scream believably, though Heat doesn't do anything exceptional for a racing game, except perhaps the voice acting.
Where you been tonight?
We were just here.
What you here? You, ID. Dipshit. Nice name. Got a car?
Yes, sir.
Yes, officer!
The villains are brought to life by compelling performances, even if their writing is a bit cartoonish. While the lip syncing can be inconsistent, the level of detail in their faces and character models is also impressive for a racing game. In fact, the characters appear to be better textured than the roads you drive on. Maybe I was too quick to judge the terrain. Perhaps I should have given it a couple of seconds to load the details given the issues the game has with draw distance. Need for Speed Heat can take several seconds to load textures and terrain models. In this instance, it took 25 seconds to load all the leaves on the tree. As bad as it seems, the aliasing is a bigger problem and can make for a very noticeable shimmering on wires and cables. Heat's temporal anti-aliasing wasn't able to correct these artifacts. These issues aren't quite as jarring when you're racing, but they're still noticeable. When it comes to racing games, lighting, particle effects, and level of details on cars have the biggest impact on the quality of the visuals. How does Need for Speed Heat fare? The lighting looks passable during the day, but really comes into its own at night. The bloom on the checkpoints is the highlight. Though they may look impractical and unrealistic, the neon glow is spectacular and does a great job of catching your eye and getting you where you need to go. The rain and reflections on the puddles complement the lighting beautifully, but this does come at a cost, performance to be precise. My 1080 Ti managed to hover around 60 frames with most of the settings maxed at 1440p, though frame rates frequently dipped into the low 50s at night. This is acceptable but not amazing, considering games like Forza Horizon 4 look as good, if not better, and yet manage to stay above 100 frames maxed at the same 1440p resolution. I guess Heat uses more demanding lighting and weather effects, or maybe my 1080 Ti is just showing its age. Either way, the disappointing performance didn't bother me as much as the bugs and instability. Need for Speed Heat refused to launch when I first tried it, and would exit immediately after I clicked the play button on Origin. I managed to fix it, but I don't remember what I did, nor do I understand why it refused to work in the first place. And sadly, it wasn't smooth sailing from there. I ran into a game-breaking glitch the first time I tried to buy nitrous for my car. The game froze for several seconds, during which I could do nothing but rev the engine. Eventually, the game threw up an error. Purchase failed. I tried again a couple of times to no avail, so I figured I had to restart the game. When I relaunched Heat, I had 2 nitrous tanks in my inventory. Sadly, I couldn't equip both of them at the same time. The purchase had gone through, but the game pretended it hadn't, leading me to waste grind currency on buying the same upgrade again. This didn't bother me as much as the game's incompatibility with driving wheels, which is by far the biggest flaw of the game. When I say the game is incompatible, I don't mean it requires you to dig into the menu and rebind the controls to your wheel's input. It'll be fine if that was the case, but it wasn't. The game does not configure the wheel bindings for you and doesn't let you do it yourself either. I tried. Connecting my wheel literally broke the game. Need for Speed Heat would not function while my wheel was connected to the PC. Navigating the menu was impossible, as a conflicting input overrides your keyboard commands. You will be stuck at the main menu so long as the wheel is connected. You won't be able to dig into the options menu to configure your controls, let alone start a race. It's a sad state of affairs when a racing game cannot work with a racing wheel, the peripheral designed to be the definitive controller for racing games. To make matters worse, this isn't the first time this developer has made a racing game that is incompatible with racing wheels. Ghost Games released their first title in 2013, Need for Speed Rivals. This is what their PC requirements page had to say about the racing wheel. Need for Speed Rivals will not support driving wheels. The Xbox 360 controller and keyboard are the only supported input devices for Need for Speed Rivals. Their next product was 2015's Need for Speed, a game saddled with hideously anti-consumer practices, always online DRM to be precise. This is how the developer justified it. You get progression from sharing your photos, taking pictures of a lot of different moments and sharing them out to the Need for Speed network, where people can like them, and those likes are being pushed back into the game as currency. That sounds like a flimsy excuse for pushing a game-breaking DRM onto anyone ignorant enough to purchase this product. But this isn't the reason we are talking about this game right now. In November 2015, a consumer posted this question on EA's forums. Does the new Need for Speed 2015 have steering wheel support? To which EA Tom, a community manager, had this to say. We've confirmed a while ago that we won't be releasing any further updates for Need for Speed, which includes wheels for consoles. Given the fact that the promise of future patches cannot be used to excuse a persistent connection requirement anymore, I wonder how EA can justify continuing to impose a horrendous always-online DRM on customers who have already paid for it. This 2015 title is not a game pirates will be interested in. Thankfully, their next Need for Speed, Payback, wasn't an always-online title, though it didn't fare any better on wheel support. It took the developers over a month to provide wheel support, and even then they only patched in compatibility with 2 wheels, the Logitech G29 and G920. Logitech isn't the only company that makes wheels, you know. This compatibility patch was too little, too late, which could be said for any update Ghost Games releases for Need for Speed Heat. On the other hand, the game is broken on the controller that is specialized for its genre, and the fix cannot come through soon enough. With no compatibility patch in sight, I had to get creative and force the game to recognize my wheel. I used a third-party tool to emulate an Xbox controller, which seems to be the only peripheral that the game supports going by the post on the forums that complains about incompatibility with a PS4's DualShock controller. This isn't how a racing game is supposed to work. It feels like the developers don't care about enthusiasts who are passionate enough about racing games to want to use a driving wheel. Ghost Games have had plenty of opportunities to learn from their mistakes and avoid the shortcomings of their previous titles. Instead, they've deliberately continued to neglect the one controller that is built specifically for enhancing immersion in racing games. This is why I don't recommend Need for Speed Heat to anyone who's passionate about racing games. If you're content with using a keyboard or an Xbox controller, you might have some fun with this game. It's not quite the return to form Need for Speed needs, but it does keep the franchise on life support for now. There is more content like this on the way, so please like, subscribe, press the bell button and select all. You won't be notified of new uploads unless you select all. Several subscribers have reported that YouTube are screwing with their notifications, even when the bell button is enabled. So if that's true, just keep an eye out for our thumbnails. Help us, channel subscribers. You're our only hope.